Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and this week today marks the launch of Season 2 content officially for the patch 11.1 with a brand new raid of Undermine, a bunch of new delve changes, a bunch of Mythic Plus dungeons, new PvP adjustments, and a lot of gearing changes for this brand new season. There's so many different changes that have happened to all forms of endgame content, but also new opportunities to get a bunch of gear from open world activities as well. With so many different gearing avenues, I wanted to put together this comprehensive guide on all of the ways that you can go about gearing all of your characters, whether you're looking to dive into delves, dungeons, raids, or PvP content, or just looking to play more casually, just exploring the open world content. I wanted to go over all of the different avenues for gear, what type of items you could expect out of that content, and how to maximize all of these activities to get yourself some of the best gear, to get yourself prepped up and ready to go wearing best slot items for the Season 2 of War Within. It's kind of a longer video, so I want to dive into it immediately. Chapter marks down below if you just want to jump to your most relevant or favorite endgame activity, or just watch the entire thing. That would always help me out as well. As always, if you guys want to see more regular updates for the patch 11.1 Season 2 content, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So when going over all of the avenues of gearing, I first want to start out with some of the more entry-level things and then move on to seasonal content, endgame content, and things like that. Starting with the very basic way of getting gear is through open world content. This offers you quite a bit of starter gear that's great for entry level and helps you get into dungeons and raids and other group activities a little bit easier. From the open world content, we have world quests, which are usually not ideal. There's a lot better gear you can really get from the open world outside of it. First thing that we'll do is go to Dornagal, where weekly quests are definitely a great starter. They'll give you some veteran track gear, lots of currencies, and if you're looking to get into delves in Season 2, lots of the keys needed for some of the bountiful delves. Also, don't forget to visit the new zone of Undermine for even more weekly bonus quests as well as gear rewards, either from veteran track items or potentially a variety of different seasonal currencies to upgrade your gear and items. Also, visit the new Renown vendor, which offers Season 2 veteran and champion track gear that they will sell to you if you've been able to carve out your name within the cartels of Undermine throughout the new Renown track. Also, when it comes to open world content, another avenue that's great when it comes to gear outside of events is going to be the world boss. Now, you're not going to be going after the original world bosses because their gear is still locked through Season 1, so you kind of want to ignore these guys for the most part, but you do want to watch out for the Godfather, which is going to be a new world boss located in Undermine, who grants you champion track gear, but also not only just champion track, but warband until equipped champion track, as in items that you can earn on your alts and your main, and then granted to all of your other characters, which are bound to your warband until equipped. Unless this changes heading into the live version of Season 2, it looks like all this gear is going to be warbound, so it may be a good idea for you to hop on every single one of your alts and try for these items. And even looks like the belt, for example, also comes with a socket immediately, which could be amazing as a early item to gain, at least for the time being. Unless this changes in the future, it looks like this guy is going to drop you a bunch of warband until equipped gear, which is going to be great for getting some early items on any of your alts. So that's the first thing you should do, send your army of alts at this guy immediately to farm him for all of his loot week 1. Besides this, open world content and events within the open world are still worth doing, like the Awakening Machine. There's the Theater Troop in Dornagal. We got the event of Spreading the Light in Hollowfall, the factions on Ashkahed, or rather the generals of Ashkahed. They're still worth doing for extra currencies like Valor Stones, crests, as well as, like I said, bountiful chests. But then there's also special assignments for all these zones that rotate from time to time. Doing a bunch of world quests in the area unlocks an additional bonus quest for you to be able to get additional rewards as well. From there on, we get to move on to delves, and you will have to reclimb up the tiers of delves early on in the season. You'll start out at the maximum tier of 4 that you can enter, and you'll have to climb back up to tier 8 and possibly tier 11 during the first few days of the season. And I would do this in non-bountiful delves. So you want to choose a non-bountiful delve to spam up those tiers up until at least tier 8, because that starts to reward the best gear, and then spam tier 8 delves, all the bountiful delves whenever they're available, for a bunch of champion track items. Delves are still going to be one of the best and the fastest way for you to earn a bunch of champion track gear. Delves don't take a lot of time. You can run them as solo, set up brand in a variety of different configurations, either as a healer or as a tank if you're looking to have the easiest time soloing this content. But they're pretty easy to do early on, and you can spare them out for a bunch of items, but also crests and valor stones. Tier 8, 9, and 10 delves, by the way, as well as 11s, have gotten their gear rewards upgraded, so it's not a bad idea to push past 8, as tier 8, 9, and 10 will award you more ruined crests, which allows you to take those champion track pieces and upgrade them a little bit faster. But also tier 11s is something you'll want to get into as early as possible, since those end of a run bountiful delves will award gilded crests with 21 crests maximum per week. There is a cap on them. It does feel kind of weird, but at least it's another source for you to be able to get guaranteed gilded crests a week from the delve activity. Delves will also have guaranteed maps this time around. Maps in the past have been very RNG. Every time you run a delve, there was like a very low drop rate for a map, and some players have gone their entire season 1 without receiving a map a single time. Maps are now going to have bad luck protection once a week, every single week. So eventually, after you run a set amount of delves, your bad luck protection is so high that there's zero chance for you to not loot a map from your bountiful chest. So you're guaranteed basically a map with enough delve runs a week. But you're now locked to only one map a week. So every single week you should try to do enough delves in order to get a map, which awards you with a bonus chest at the end of the run, which grants you hero track items immediately, which you can use as ruined crest to upgrade and the gilded crest to further upgrade through your delve experiences. It's also a good idea to fill out your Great Vault with as many tier 8 delves as possible, usually up to 8, or at the very minimum do at least up to 4 of them a week. But I feel like for the first few weeks, spamming up to 8 throughout an entire week is actually very doable. You do get a lot of keys pretty early on with all the weekly activities, but you're trying to fill out your Great Vault with as many +8 and above delves, because that's where you're going to be able to get hero track items out of delves. But the gear from the weekly rewards is still capped to only hero track, so doing 10s, 11s is not really going to be worth doing. At the very minimum, do 8 tier 8 delve runs in order to be able to fill out your Great Vault with as many items for you to potential loot at the end of the week with the reset of the next week, potential looting some maybe tier gear or even some of the best trinkets from delves, which actually still continue to have some of the better items depending on the class, depending on the spec. From there, we got changes to dungeon gearing, which has gotten through a number of adjustments, with this season looking to be an easier season for gearing through dungeons in general. This is primarily a change to the affix system. You no longer have to face against the affix that causes your group to lose time on every death. That has been moved on to a +12 affix, replacing the Xal'atath's Guile. So instead of being an affix you get to face early on, you actually don't have to deal with it. Doesn't mean that the dungeons this season are going to be easy by any measure. Darkflame Cleft, Cinderbrew Meadery, Floodgate, which is the new one, Priory, all are going to be able to still give you quite a bit of a challenge as you do these dungeons. But it's a lot easier for you to be able to get more gear out of these dungeons at lower levels, with the dungeons also granting you even more crests at lower levels, but the dungeons also being easier does make them a lot more doable during first week. Since keys don't scale nearly as heavily, trying to get into dungeons might be the best time in Season 2. So if you were trying to do gearing in M+, and you were maybe a little bit intimidated by the difficulty curve at +7s, this season might be the season for you. Mythic 0 dungeons from the get-go are going to start to drop you champion track gear, so even a basic Mythic 0 dungeon is worth running. This used to be only veteran track, but now being champion track actually gives you some items to be worth your while. So if you need a refresher for these dungeons, running them Mythic 0 to get a bunch of champion track, which is an item per boss of the instance, so potentially most dungeons being 4 boss dungeons, 4 chances of loot from each one of them, there's an opportunity for you to be able to get a lot of gear from every single one of these dungeons. And even dungeons like Future of Pain will be available on base Mythic for you to run, which are part of the seasonal content. Therefore, they will have their own loot tables for you to explore and get gear from, even during this season. But from there, you should try to move on into +6 dungeons in order to start farming hero track items. As yeah, hero track is going to start drop from +6s, which are very doable. You don't need the most amount of gear, just as long as you have a good idea of what dungeons do and respect for the mechanics, as well as a decent enough group. should be able to spam them pretty easily. +7s is where you start to get gilded crests to be able to upgrade those hero track items, but of course the higher level you go above a 7, you'll get even more crests, but +7s are also very doable. And even making your way to +10s this season with all those hero track items and gilded crests that you can get from +6 and 7s, all of those as you upgrade the gear will make it easier for you to jump into +10s, which is what you ideally want to do at the start of the season to fill out your great vault slots, as it allows you to loot mythic track gear from your great vault the next week. Try to do as many dungeons as you can during the first few weeks just to max out the gear, but bare minimum if you're gonna get at least 1 +10 done, or better yet 4 +10s done, that'll be the best opportunity for you to get as many good items and potentially really good pieces for you to be able to get from your dungeons. Also, dungeons overall will be one of the best ways for you to be able to farm up gilded crests. So if you're looking to get some of the best crafted gear, gilded crest is going to be where it's at, and dungeons is going to be your best avenue for some of the best items out there. From there, we got raid content with the Liberation of Undermine raid, which will have difficulties as well as different gear dropping from a variety of different difficulties: a veteran from LFR, champion track from normal, hero track from heroic, and mythic from mythic. Now, LFR won't have all of the wings available day one, so it's a good idea to at least jump into normal's baseline to collect a bunch of champion track items, as normal version of these raids won't be scaled as high as hero or heroic rather, and mythic either. So this is going to be one of your best places to at least be able to get a bunch of chances at tier set tokens, which will give you quite a significant bit of power gain as you unlock your 2 set and 4 set bonuses. Also, just about every single boss has a variety of rare items on them that generally are all going to be pretty strong, with like test pilots, Go Pack for example, or some of the better trinkets like the House of Cards, which will be a best of slot for many of the different classes out there, as well as Chrome King Galawix with the Eye of Kazan, which is still looking like one of the better items available from some of these encounters. And there's also a lot of different weapons in these encounters as well that come with additional shadow damage effect on them. Like if you take an agility class and go for Galawix's Iron Thumb, for instance, this weapon adds you additional shadow damage as you continue to hit the target, while also granting you secondary stats. And usually any items that grant you additional damage bonuses like that are generally some of the strongest out there, because that additional shadow damage, even if it's a little bit, goes a long way when it comes to a long encounter, and it's just something that generally ends up being very consistent for most classes. So keep on the lookout for any weapons or items that deal additional elemental damage to enemy targets. When it comes to raids though, I do recommend doing them at least on normal, or better yet heroic if possible, and get as many bosses as you can, because the more bosses you slay, the better you'll be able to fill out your great vault slots. You'll have to defeat 2 bosses, 4 and 6, in order to be able to unlock up to 3 bonuses from the great vault. And the higher difficulty of bosses you defeat these on, the better the rewards are going to be. Outside of delves, dungeons, and raids, we also have crafted gear, which offers some of the best items available, and this is where you'll be able to get some of the best of slot pieces with various embellishments such on every one of your characters. And it's also a very consistent way of you being able to get guaranteed items with best of slot stats. Now, when it comes to crafting, they've actually improved it by quite a bit. Previously, you would need somebody with the enchanting profession to convert your Ruined Harbinger crest or your Gilded crest into a nascent Gilded crest. They give it into Enchanter to turn it from a nascent into an enchanted crest, and then you could use it to upgrade or create new crafted pieces. They changed it up completely. You no longer need an enchanter to create these things for you. You can just trade in your Gilded crest directly, 60 of them, for an enchanted Gilded crest, and then immediately go into the work order system or craft it yourself if you have the profession knowledge for it, to be able to create some of the items, the weapons, and pieces that you're gonna need for this season. As per usual though, when you are crafting new items in Season 2, you will need the new spark, the Spark of Fortunes, available in Season 2, and you will earn half a spark every single week. So you are limited on how many of these you can earn, but during week 1, you will be able to guarantee create 1 item, as when you earn 1 spark, you get a second one for free. So you should be able to create a proper spark rather out of the 2 spark fragments that you get week 1. As long as you have the items that you could usually buy from the auction house and find a crafter that can make these items guaranteed on a rank 5 quality, which is, you shouldn't do any lower than that. As long as you have the additional reagent to be able to boost that item to the highest possible level with enchanted gilded Undermine crest, you can upgrade the item to a maximum of 675 level quality, which is massive. This is going to be a huge gain for your character. And the first thing you should do is probably craft a crafted item immediately week 1. So you should farm out as many of these gilded crests as possible during the very first week, cap out, and then use them in order to create a crafted item immediately. You may need to look up a guide on which are the best crafted items for your class and your spec to create week 1 or throughout the season 2. So it might be a good idea to delve into some of the different guides out there in order to figure out your best in slot crafting option. But in most cases, for many classes out there, a weapon is a really good craft, or any item with best in slot embellishments. Like if you're maybe reliant on certain healing or damage embellishments or defensive embellishments, those are probably going to be the best ones for you. But in most cases, a weapon generally ends up being a very solid option if you're not 100% sure, but definitely best in slot. But definitely worth it for you to look up a guide on this in order to not make a mistake week 1. When it comes to PvP gear, we're dealing with its own unique ecosystem that doesn't need to interact with PvE content whatsoever, at least not fully. For the most part, you have yourself the Conquest Quartermaster, Honor Quartermaster, and War Mode Quartermaster with the same items, but upgraded for Season 2. Honor gear is going to be something you want to buy immediately day 1, because it'll offer you much higher item levels that scale to 665 within PvP content. It does mean you're going to be dropping your tier set from Season 1, but I think it's going to be worth it. The item level gains on these items are massive, and I think it's going to be something that you'll want to get to immediately as soon as possible. From there on, don't forget to do your weekly quest for World PvP. Whether you're into World PvP or not, the actual currencies of Bloody Tokens are still worth it, because they'll offer you gear of 675 item level quality, scaled up to 675 within PvP content. The stats in these can be all over the place, but if anything, buying a weapon early on can be massive, or at least potentially just filling out some of those other slots if there are items with your best in slot stats on these. Eventually though, you will want to move on to conquest items, which you'll get from rated PvP activities. You will need to wait a little bit to get the achievement of prized weapons conquest before you can buy the weapons, so that's going to be available during week 2 of the season, so you are kind of limited on the weapons. But as long as you bank up enough conquest for the next week, you should be able to buy a weapon pretty early on. And then from there, the rest of the gear should be your best in slot for the season. However, if you don't see any of these items that has your best in slot stats and you want to really min-max your items, you can always buy prized Gladiator's Heraldry to craft PvP gear with best in slot stats. Just like PvE crafting, you would get your misses for secondary stats, you would pop in the prized Gladiator's Heraldry, maybe a embellishment if you're looking to run those in the season. But PvP is its own ecosystem. You don't need any sparks in order to craft these PvP pieces, so those should be good on their own. Also, PvPers, while they don't need to do PvE content to upgrade their PvP items, if you are going to be doing a mix of PvE and PvP this season, and let's say you loot a tier item from a raid or one of the tier pieces from your Great Vault, from delves or dungeons, you can convert them into a PvP item, or at least grant them that PvP scaling. So you don't need to use the catalyst in order to take a conquest piece like a helm and catalyze it to give it a tier bonus. If you do get a tier piece immediately, you could just use the varnish or the lacquer to add that scaling property into PvP, because it wouldn't change the stats anyway, because catalyzing would remove all the versatility, unless the item already comes with a lot of versatility. But yeah, so with this, you can take one of those PvE raid items and then give them the PvP scaling, kind of bypassing the catalyzation method, which can be convenient for many of you if you're going to be doing PvE and PvP content in the season. Speaking about the catalyst, we still do have the same old catalyst in Season 1, and it functions basically the same this time around. Just like before, you could pop in an item, and any old gear, by the way, from Season 1 can be immediately converted into tier pieces from Season 2 without any currency cost. But any Season 2 gear you're looking to catalyze is going to require a currency that you'll be able to amass once every 2 weeks. So the catalyst is technically going to be available day 1, and you should be able to have a charge on this thing day 1, just like in Season 1. And with it gaining charge over 2 weeks, by third week, you should have 2 charges on the catalyst. So as long as you have 2 pieces of tier gear, you get that catalyst 2 more items, so then have your 4 set available immediately. Only item slots with the helm, the shoulder, the chest, the gloves, and the pants can have the tier set bonuses, while all the other things like bracers or cloaks or boots, all those things can also be catalyzed. You'll mostly be catalyzing them for the appearance, but also the different stats that it provides as part of that quote-unquote set. Also, this season's Master Achievement will also function a little bit differently, with the War Within Master Achievement, which is awarded for you to get from getting KSM from Mythic Dungeons, so about 2,000 points in dungeon score, or getting AOTC ahead of the curve, slaying the final boss on heroic difficulty, or getting 1,600 points of PvP rating in any of the PvP brackets, awards you the Drag of War Within Season 2 Master Achievement, which grants you a bonus charge for your catalyst. So if you're looking to get an additional charge for your catalyst, you can catalyst 2 items week 1. You can do that, but you'll first need to get the achievement, which out of all the requirements for this achievement, I think AOTC is very, very doable if you have a raiding guild that is geared from last season and gets lucky on loot drops during your normal and heroic runs. But I actually think PvP might be the easiest, as getting 1,600 PvP rating in any of the brackets, I think is a lot easier. At least from my testing, I found that was a little bit quicker than waiting for KSM or AOTC, but that really depends on your groups, that really depends on your guild and what activities you guys get into during week 1. But PvP side of things, you can actually grind it out solo, which I think is why I find it easier than all the other activities. But with that, as always, I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our community, probably the best place to discuss any of the newest updates or even patch notes and class changes, which there's going to be plenty of as we progress throughout Season 2. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.